starting to share, Dave. We'll get it to go. Okay. Let's see, participants.
Did it pop up okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I got to move my mouse around, so I apologize because I have to look at 4 monitors here.
Did you want it in full screen, Dave?
Can you see it, or is it in?
I see it in like presenter mode, but it's got like the second slide on the.
Is there a way? Do I go like this? Oh, sorry. I'm just trying to make sure I get it in the right mode here. Am I in the right mode?
You had it before
Okay, let me
that
go
we
back.
only saw one screen.
Okay. Am I back?
Whatever you
still
did
have
the
2
first
screens.
time. Yeah, whatever you did the first time.
All right.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yeah. Good lunch time. We'll get started in a little bit.
Okay. Are we good?
I still did it. So that shows all of them.
Now we have all of them.
Oh, sorry about that.
They're fine.
All right, I had it.
Had it. I don't know what the.
All right, give me a second here. I'm not sure how to get it out of presenter mode, so. Okay, did I get it now?
There,
Now back to PowerPoint.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go from beginning and go slideshow. Come on. Slideshow beginning. All right, go. We're trying. Why is it not? Okay, here we go. Is it working?
I think
I am saying go from current slideshow. Why is it not? Sorry, guys, we had this just a second ago. Golly. All right, from. Okay. All right, hold on, everybody. We're just gonna I'm gonna go back and see what's going on here. All right. Let me see what I'm doing wrong. Sorry, Chelsea, I'm gonna see if I can fix this. Okay, all right. I'm gonna open it back up, Chelsea, and go back in, okay? Maybe something happened here. Let's go back in. Okay, we got it. Back. All right, we're gonna hope this works now. Share. Okay. Slideshow from current slide. Okay.
I can see the screen behind you and
Okay.
that's exactly what you want.
All right, are we good now? Are we good? I'm sorry it's taken this long to shoot up. Okay.
Share you just need to share your screen.
Okay. And are we good?
Yeah,
There
you
you
got
go.
it.
There we go.
Okay.
Thank
Now we
you,
got it.
everybody.
All right.
Sorry,
Oh my
everyone.
gosh. Good Lord.
All right. So, all right, let's get started. So welcome everyone to our second episode of Learning at Lunch. So today we have Dave Biederman with us presenting, and he is the urban arborist and urban forester and utility forester for the city of Hamilton. And today he's going to be talking about climate change and its impacts on the urban forests. So if you could, Dave, please take it away.
Okay, thank you, Chelsea, and thank you, everybody, for attending. Sorry for my errors. I'm old technology, but we'll get started and have fun. And really what we're going to be talking about today is how climate change is impacting the urban forest. And we're going to talk about the native forest, of course, in the US as well. So we're going to have fun. This is going to be about one semester of class in 30 minutes. So hang on. Okay. Okay, let's take a look. I moved to Ohio. I was a captain in the United States Army, and I moved out here in 1990 May. Now let's take a look at the plant hardiness zones, if you will. And you can see that Ohio, the light green are the zone 5A, -15 to -20. Zone B is that dark green, if you will, -10 to -15. And then 6A is the yellow. And isn't that interesting? Up around Lake Erie, there's some 6A right off the lake. And then of course, down in our area here, Butler County, Hamilton, down south, we're mostly 6A and then 6B along the edge. So what I did is I said, okay, let's look at today's plant hardiness zones. We're only talking in 30 years. So here's the new map. And as you take a look at that, you go, wow. So we dropped off zone 5A. So now you see the pockets in the blue areas where it's -10 to -15. Now I used to work in Bowling Green, which is up there in Wood County near the Maumee River. So we were pretty cold. And you can see that probably 3/4 of the state is now zone 6A. And then of course, down in these southern areas, 6B. And one of the things that's interesting about this is just the fact that I was just on a webinar with some researchers across the Midwest here, and they're talking 50 years from now that the northern half of the state, so we're going to go back a couple slides. So the northern half of the state will probably be 6B, and that southern area where you see the yellow is probably going to be zone 7 by 2050 maybe. So as you think about that, so we all know trees don't get up and walk by their roots, migrate, okay? But in reality, trees are migrating north. The species that are in the northern parts of the United States or northern Ohio are going to move up into Canada. And then the trees that are south of us are going to start moving into Ohio. So I'm going to talk about a little research we're going to be doing with Wright State toward the end of this. But just to put it in perspective, so when you're doing your long-term master tree planting plans, you have to think, if we're going to go up about 5 degrees warmer, let's go back. So some parts of the state were -20, and you see the warmest parts were 0 to -5. And here we are in just 30 years, we've already seen about a 5-degree shift. So you can see there's going to be certain species that are going to be leaving Ohio that we're going to be too hot for them to survive. And we'll kind of go through some of those species. Okay. Now, this is a forest species shift that if you look at the map on the right or left, you'll see 1960 to 1990. And that kind of red area up in the New England states, that's a maple, beech, and birch. And then you're looking at some of the dark green, the spruce forests. And then, of course, aspen, birch over in the Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, parts of Dakotas, oak, pine, oak, hickory. You can see that green area as you look at them. And then what's projected, you can see that the maple, beech, birch forest is no longer on the right up in those New England states. And a lot of that spruce fir forest, again, they're moving to Canada because it's going to be projected in 50 years to be too hot. And you can see those southern species, loblolly pine, shortleaf pine, and some of those are going to start moving up into Tennessee and the Carolinas. So these are things as the Forest Service is putting in models. They're looking at how the earth is warming up. And of course, a long time ago, just Native Americans, a few pilgrims. And now today we're, approaching 500 million people. More land is developed and, less and less people out in the rural, less trees, less forests, more fragmented. So this is what's happening to our forests. They're shifting to the Midwest and North. And the reason is because of climate change, it's drier out west, drier down south, across the South, all the way to Florida from New Mexico. And then it's getting wetter in the Midwest and the New England states. So this is kind of what climate change is happening, and our forests, just like all animals, are shifting and adjusting size. Just like birds are getting smaller because of climate change and take less food to survive as they fly and migrate. We'll talk about those in a little bit, but things are happening. All I can tell you is just in my 32 years of doing this, I've seen insects that we'll pick a few. The bark beetle is typically a southern area beetle. It's now moving into the Carolinas and moving up into Virginia, and it's devastating some pines because it's warmer, it's less cool, so they can move north, especially up in New Jersey, Delaware, and Maryland, where the pinelands are just getting decimated because there's no ecological balance. They never had bark beetle. They don't have a defense mechanism, so the beetles just go in there and ravage them like emerald ash borer does to our ash. Okay, good stuff, right? So when we talk about sugar maple, I'm going to be talking about keystone species. These are species that are vital to the ecosystem, vital to human life, wildlife. And if you look at this modeling, the picture on the left says, here are where sugar maples are currently established right now. And obviously the red areas is where the primary populations are. And then the yellow, and then you got a lighter brown, and then it gets down to a light kind of area gray. Now that's modeled, that's saying currently right now where sugar maples are kind of still hanging on. Now you look over and this model is projecting out 50 years. You can see that the populations of sugar maple are going to be decimated. And that's all that's going to be left is primarily in the New England states, up in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. And then you look, there's a little pocket down in West Virginia, it looks like. But for the most part, they're projecting those to move north and out. So you can see that's a very, very important species. And why do we say that? Well, produces food for wildlife, supports songbirds, insects, mammals. Syrup industry is big. Everybody's excited. And you know how syrup's produced, right? You know, just like bees, if you get bee honey, when you get it in the spring, do you ever notice it's a beautiful light color? So think of beer. When they make beer, the top of it's an IPA. There's a lager in the middle, and then there's stout and Guinness on the bottom. Honey is the same way. Spring honey's light. Summer honey is kind of that lager. But you get in the fall, like right now through the fall, what they're picking off for pollen, the honey's going to be really dark, really a dark stout, if you will. Now, it's the same with maple syrup. Depending on the species and the time of the year and where you draw it, it's that light, medium, or dark. So it's kind of, you can make those anomalies. It's important to the timber industry and just the economical importance of sugar maples. And this tree is a keystone species and it's very sensitive. What does that mean? It's specific on acidity of soil. So like here, if you take the state of Ohio, like this map behind me, and if I go I-91 cuts an angle through it like this, but we're on this side where the glacier came down, took away all the good stuff. So that's why our soils are high pH, clay, highly compactable. So the sugar maples do better on the south, east, and northeast part of the state, more acidic, wooded, didn't get hit by the glaciers. So this tree is something that we expect in 50 years, it may be just a few pockets of them here in Ohio, just because of the heating and that climate change. American beech. And again, as we look at the beech, you take a look at the map on the left, and the red areas are kind of where it's heavily concentrated. The green areas are where the beech's native range is. When you go to the right in 50 years, most of the beech trees are going to be in those New England states. It looks like a little bit in West Virginia and the Carolinas, but you can see that, again, due to the beech bark disease, there's a few other diseases up in Northeast Ohio right now that are impacting beech. There's some scale, beech bark scale. And so here again, they're projecting that this is going to be one of those trees that's going to move north or move up into Canada because it's going to be too hot and the bugs are attacking it, and it can't fight them off due to they weren't ecologically bugs and defense mechanisms with the beech trees. So why are they important? They are the only member of Fagus in North America. All the rest are over in Europe and Asia. It supports 120 butterflies and moths, and that is very important. You know, people go, oh, what's a moth? But insects are very critical. mammals, the birds, turkeys, deer, all those animals, small mammals, squirrels, chipmunks, eat the seeds. It's a wood products industry. Now, we like to do history lesson, right? In all these talks. So one of the things is early settlers would get the nuts and boil them and extract oil, and that's what they used for their lamps back in the day. We like that. Now, by the way, the nuts are highly poisonous unless you cook them first, boil them. You have to cook them for human consumption. So don't go out and crack a few open and go out and have a nibble. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bad day. Eastern hemlock. And again, let's look at the left. You see the range of the hemlock, and the hemlock that are in the Carolinas, down there in West Virginia, there is a subspecies there. But again, you can see where it's primarily located. Then you come over to the map and they kind of go, where do they see that? What's going to happen to the hemlocks in the long run? You can see it's no longer going to be in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, highly concentrated. And still the red pockets are where they think that's where it's going to make it stand in 50 years. And then of course, the lighter the color, they'll probably die off or not be in that area. They'll be. So those are pockets. Now, what's impacting the Eastern hemlock? Right now, there's a bug from Asia called the hemlock woolly adelgid, and that kills them, and it's killing them at a high rate. Again, you take a bug from overseas, you bring it over here, there's no ecological symbionts. It hasn't grown up with it, so it just stone cold kills them. And this is another keystone species. And you can see this is over in Pennsylvania, but I sat through a PhD candidate's talk, and she talked about, she's studying hemlock mortality. This is over in Pennsylvania, Allegheny National Forest, where they intercept that water, they keep the forest cool. It keeps these cold water streams that support native brook trout. Brook trout are the only native trout to the US. Brown trout are from over in Europe. Rainbow trout are really from like Pacific, Northwest United Oceans, the steelhead, so they're not native in our waters. So brook trout need crystal clear water, very cool water, very pristine. And hemlocks play a very important role in the ecosystem to keep the water levels where they're at, keep the water cold. Now, what else does it impact? There's a whole group of salamanders that specifically live in the duff underneath hemlocks that are only found specifically in these hemlock forests. So again, they can live up to 400 years old, support many birds and mammals, a lot of timber industry, of course. But here's another species that right now, the DNRs, the Forest Service, all these folks that are trying to figure out how to save the hemlock going forward. You got all these invasive pests and diseases that are impacting it. Plus it's heating up and they can't take the hot weather. So again, another keystone species. Okay, white oak. Now I'm from Iowa out there, and I went to Iowa State. White oak is the state tree. And here's the thing, if you look at the Midwest and Ohio back in the day, the Native Americans, now this is what they did it for, but we know what the benefit is here. They would burn the forest, the oak savannas, and the deal was they'd line up all the tribe here and they would burn the forest. And the idea was to run all the game to the people with their spears and arrows to get the wild game, but they periodically would burn these forests, the oak hickory forests. And so oaks need that regeneration to burn off the competition so they can survive. And in the old days, they used to do clear cuts. Okay, and clear cuts in the old days where they take an entire 40 acres, but back in the old days, it probably was 200, 300, 400 acres, and they would clear cut it, and then the oaks would, they'd burn it, and then the oaks would grow up. Well, now they quit clear cutting. They just do specific tree harvesting now on most private lands, state lands, and US Forest Service. So the oaks are really impacted. And that's the white oak group and the red oak group, but we're focused on the white oak tree because it's a keystone species. And if you look at the left map, you can see it goes from Texas over to Florida, all the way up into Minnesota, looks like a little bit in Nebraska, but a point up into the New England states. Then you go on the right and they project in the future, and I'm talking in 50 years, because we don't have those lightning strikes, we don't have those periodic fires. And just so you know, deer, now I know y'all aren't going to believe this, but when I moved to Ohio, you were allowed to catch 1 deer in a hunting season. Today, you can get 6. And if you get in the urban zone, you can get 9, one person. So the point is the deer eat the oaks before they can regenerate without the fire in that. So the deer and other mammals eat the oak seedlings just down to the roots. And so you can see there's not going to be, I'm going to just put my cursor here. You just see those little pockets of white oaks that where you can see those green dots. That's all that's going to be left of the white oak they project, you know, in 50 years again, because they're not, as the forests are cleared and regenerating, it's tulip poplar, cherry, red maple, sugar maple, elm, birch. And those are kind of, when you talk forestry species, there's the ones that come in first. And then beyond that, you know, the oaks take a long time to get established and come back. So why is the oaks important? The oak trees support 2,300 species in North America. And that's all oaks. That happens to be a picture of a white oak. If you look there at the bottom, that's a person. So you can see that's a person and how big this one tree is, several hundred years old. It's important to both humans. I mean, back in the day when the Pilgrims came, they made ships. You know, today the barrels. The University of Kentucky is doing a research project, and I can't remember, I sent you that, Chelsea, right? That data, and they're looking to have people collect acorns and actually ship them to the University of Kentucky. Because the white oak is important, excuse me, to the bourbon industry, and they use the oak wood to make the barrels, the bourbon industry in Kentucky is putting up the money for the research, and they're actually giving land on their distilleries to do these oak plots. And they're trying to figure out how to save the white oak specifically as a keystone species. And the oaks have more biomass than any other species in North America. Very important to timber industry. And of course, the ecosystem would be impacted if something happened to oaks because so many animals, organisms depend on them. Very important. But it's not all gloom and doom, I promise you. Let's talk river birch. And again, river birch, there's a paper birch, there's a yellow birch, but river birch is probably the most populated of the birch. And again, keystone species, you look on the map on the left, you can see where it's at. Map on the right is a simulated model in the future, and you can see it's pretty solid. And then where they project it to be. And again, another one of them species, it's going to get too hot and with the bugs and pests. And again, another picture with river birch along a creek. It keeps the water cool. And its range was New England to Florida over to Texas. Important to watershed. And of course, Native Americans, early settlers, birch bark canoes, and they used all kinds of products. The birch supports 400 species. So again, a very important tree. It's one that we're watching, and we're planting the Dury Heat river birch here in the Heritage. River birch, important tree. Black cherry. Again, another keystone species. So let's take a look at this map on the current range of it. And you can see it's all the way down to Florida, over to Texas, up through Missouri, up in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the New England states. Then you go over to our map on the right, and you can see where the red dots they project it to be. So again, another one of these trees that it's going to get too hot for them in those southern areas, and even here in Ohio as we go forward 50 years from now. I think the fact that it supports 456 species of butterflies, moths, and pollinators, and you don't think that because you don't pay attention to them. Here's this black cherry tree out in the woods, and you don't think of it. It's an important timber tree. Black cherry, black walnut are the #1 exports out of Ohio if it's being logged for timber. Now, just so everybody knows, all parts of that tree that you see here are poisonous except for the fruit. And you got to keep that in mind. Back in the day, the settlers and the Native Americans used it for food and medical remedies, and some of it still is used today, the fruit in cough medicine and stuff like that for people, sore throats. But black bears eat it, and I thought that was pretty darn cool. And we're starting to see more bears in southern Ohio on the east side of the state as well. Again, a keystone species. All right, just wanted to show you, I saw this new street tree. They called it a petunia tree, but I'm not so sure I'm planting any of that, but I did see that down in Fairfield recently. Okay, what are we doing to combat climate change? The Ohio DNR Division of Forestry Urban Forestry Group came up with the Urban Site Index. So for those of you, my background is a forester, fish and wildlife biologist, and it's called the site index. The site index is a predictor. You take the current forest as is, the diameters of the stems and how many stems per acre, you do plots, and you can extrapolate out the potential of the site to grow timber. If you're growing it for timber, or if you're growing it for whatever, they call it a site index, if you will. Now the urban site index, they look at you're going to plant this tree in the public right of way or in a park or a green space, even in your own yard if you live in a city or a subdivision. And it looks at the capability to plant trees in urban areas. And what are we looking at? The existing vegetation. Is it grass? Is it weeds? Is it rocks? Surface compaction? Is it like walking on cement, or is it walking on lush carpet or lush grass where it's really soft? We're going to do soil probes. Does your probe go in easy? Does it go in with some effort, or is it like a rock? Soil layers, we take a soil sample to see what we have. The speed, now you're going, what's that mean? Cars going by. Are we on how many lanes are there? Is it 4-lane highway, 2-lane highway? Is it just our street? Parking, are there cars parking by the trees? You start up, you get exhaust, or doors might hit the tree. The lanes, and then the width of the tree lawn, that's between the curb and the sidewalk. To grow a small tree, and we'll get into that in a little minute, you need 4 feet, medium tree 6, and a large tree, and we'll get into all that. But this urban site index was created so you can take each site and go, can we plant a tree? And the score is 20. No tree is 0 to 8. Now I'm going to explain what poor and intermediate and good means. So poor is 9 to 11, intermediate is 12. So a good tree, what's a good tree? Remember the keystone species? Sugar maple, hemlock, river birch, black cherry, white oak. A good species means it needs the best site, the best soil drainage, loam, it's perfect conditions. Intermediate would be a tree that can take a little compaction, a little poor drainage, a little bit more clay. Now a poor tree really means a tough tree, a locust, an elm, something that can handle it. Something that can take a lot of beating, a filbert, Turkish filbert. And we're going to see these trees in a minute. But the point being is, so we've incorporated this in that we can go out and measure every site in the city of Hamilton. In this case, you could do it in your own yard. I could show you how to do it on another day, another class. But the point being is, so we're doing the urban site index. So a poor tree, which means it's tough. So a locust tree would fall as a tough tree. Intermediate, Kentucky coffee, you can see the pods here. And then a good tree again is that sugar maple. So we're going out, and some sites are going to come up with that 0 to 8, and it means no tree. And it's not that anybody's doing anything wrong. Maybe it's a former industrial site, they build homes, or they dumped all the construction debris. You'll see spots in yards where the grass doesn't grow, and then you dig it out and there's rocks and brick and debris. And we have that in Hamilton in our right of ways as well. We've come into all kinds of things. So what else are we doing? Well, it's been 25 years. So with Miami University in 2020 and 2021, we worked with the botany department, and we did a transplant shock growth recovery research project. It has been 25 years since it's been done in Ohio. So what did we do? We looked at all the trees we planted in 2016 and 2020, all the trees we planted in 2017 and 2021. We used bud scale, budscape, that's nice. It's supposed to be bud scale, apologize for the misspelling. Scale scars to measure back. So what we're doing is we measure back 5 years. So we're measuring the first year would have been, in case this year, 2021, 2020, 2019, 2018. You get to 2017, your fourth measurement. And then that 2016 was when it grew in the nursery. And for 2016, the same thing, 2015. So we took those measurements back. And then the whole idea is we're looking at these trees. You see a bald cypress, there's a lilac, again, a black maple, frontier elm, the cardinal and the red bud, there's serviceberry, Kentucky coffee, and of course, Zelkova leaf down here. And the point was, we did the urban site index scores. We also looked at the mulching, the watering, the pruning, anything those trees received was the same level of care. So that we took that out. So this tree's getting dug, balled and burlap, and planted, and then we're watering it, mulching it, taking care of it. So the idea was to say, what trees are doing well, what trees aren't, and what do we got to do a better job? Are we doing a good job? So we're going to get into it. Now, we also have to take this into account, the data. So when you look at the data, we come out with the 10, 20, 30 rule. This is kind of the standard rule. You don't want more than 10 trees a species. If you're planting 100 trees, that means 10. Genus, you don't want more than 20%, no more than 30% of family. So on our right here, shingle oak is the species, quercus is the genus, Fagaceae is the family, beech and oaks. And again, then just another example, American elm is the species, Almus is the genus, and Almaceae. And the point is, that's what we try and use. That's the current rule. Now, a better rule would be the 5, 10, 15 rule of planting. It is very difficult on this part of the state with our limitations of the soil, the high pH, the clay content, and the drainage. That would be more something if we drew the line in Ohio on the northeast and southeast side of the state, they could probably do that. They have a little better opportunity. But what will work here, which is even the best, is the 5% genus rule, where you plant no more than 5% of the genus, and that can maximize your species and your genus and family, your diversity. And we'll talk about that, why that's important. So diversity, why do we want to plant different types of trees? Emerald ash borer. Just so you know, let's go back in time. We like history lessons, right? We're excited. Here's a history lesson. There were 4 billion American chestnuts in the US. We brought over some Chinese chestnuts in New York, and we spread chestnut blight, and it wiped out 4 billion American chestnuts. Emerald ash borer. There's 4 billion native North American ash. We're going to wipe them all out because we brought over some lumber and pallets from overseas, and it released emerald ash borer. Again, no ecological living, so that's why it kills all ash, Native American ash. We have Asian longhorn beetle over in Claremont County, Bethel, and spotted lanternfly. They've got it in Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware. They found it in Indiana, and they just found it in Kansas at the Kansas State Fair. One rode a ride on a camper. The kid caught it, killed it, and put it in his display for 4-H. And they looked at it and said, that's a spotted lanternfly. So you can see that's how they move, is by vehicles and by firewood. That's why there's restrictions. What else is out there? Oak wilt disease is here in Ohio. Bacterial leaf scorch is on the East Coast. Anthracnose, fire blight, pine needle cast right now, because in Ohio we've overplanted spruce. I'm talking blue spruce in Norway. They're getting killed and devastated, especially if they touch and they're planted close together. So the recommendations are now white spruce, black spruce, Doug fir, dawn redwood, and bald cypress, just so you know, because they're getting wiped out. It's too hot here. Now, remember the latitude? There's Canada, Colorado blue spruce, and then you can go down the latitude. There's Colorado, then there's blue spruce from New Mexico and Mexico. Now we're up here in Ohio, so think about it. If you get your spruce progeny, it's from south of our latitude, it's going to be too cold. If we get them from Canada or Wyoming in there and we plant them in Ohio, it's going to be too hot. So the progeny drives where you plant your trees on the latitude. I know that's kind of high level, but that's why you got to know where your stock comes from when you're buying them. And then the idea of this diversity of planting is no impact on the street or subdivision. I came from northwestern Ohio. We had a subdivision of 200 homes. It was all green and white ash. They were dead in a year, and they were this big around. I had to cut them all down and replace them with 2-inch sticks. And you know, it just devastates the community when you go from 30-inch trees to 2-inch trees. So the idea is not to do that. And of course, the ecosystem, birds, insects, mammals. So when you look at these trees here, these are species of trees that we plant: service barrier, small, red bud, lilac, maple, black gum, hornbeam, elm, all these species here. I won't get into them, but the point is, these are all the different species we plant here in Hamilton. We did the tree equity score research project. US Census data. We took the heat islands, air quality, income, minority, areas, voids of trees. And so when we plugged it in, here's the good news with the research. we've planted 80 to 85% in the highest priorities on the tree equity score, and the other 15, 20% are where we've removed trees, and that could be on the west side. And then last year and this year, we're giving away 50 free 5-gallon container trees to the residents of Hamilton. And they've got stuff up on the website about that, or you can get my information. Another thing we're doing, we partnership with the Division of Forestry for the Instagram Ohio Tree ID. So all you got to do is go into Instagram, and I'm old technology, but the ladies help me. And I'm going to go in here real quick. And as I'm doing it, we're talking Ohio Tree ID. Right now we're doing serviceberry tree, and that both my interns help with this. We started out with 0 followers. We have 1,600 followers, and we have 1,000 posts. So this is a way for you to learn basic tree ID, and we do all native species and some cultivars. So those of you out there that want to learn about trees, this is an easy way to do it. You just have to plug in an email and a password. All right, we got to the end. Hooray! I only went over 5 minutes, so I'm sorry to everybody. All right, Chelsea, did we get any questions? A lot of material we covered.
Let's see. So yeah, if anyone has any questions for Dave, you can put it into the Q&A or the chat, and we can ask him about this topic.
I'll see if I can take it off of the loop-de-doo. Here we go.
Yeah.
How's that? I'm seeing, did I take it off of share? Okay.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
good.
Good. I see some chats on my end, Chelsea. Let's
Yeah,
see.
there's a few chats. I don't see any
okay.
questions quite yet.
No question, but that's okay if there aren't any. I mean, they can reach out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there is a question. It
How
says,
will-
go ahead.
Oh, how will Buckeyes be affected?
Okay. Right now, I think the Buckeyes are one of the trees. If you'll just pardon me for a second, I just got to look. I actually have the U.S. Forest Service data for the state of Ohio, as well as Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, and I'm just trying to remember where I might have. Okay, here's Ohio USDA Forest Climate Change. I'm going to ask that question 1 second. I just got to pull it up. I was just looking at this to incorporate into our research that we're doing. Okay. Big T. I got to see where they put it. Blue ash, black ash. Because they actually have I can send you something, Chelsea, if you get their emails. I can send you this data. Red cherry, I apologize. I just got to go look in sassafras.
Yeah.
It's not
You can-
alphabetic.
You can
Okay,
send
so
me the link and I can post it when I post the
Yes,
recording
I'll
on
send you that.
Facebook.
So they're going to say right now, it is, this is in the future in 50 years, very poor is what they're saying for the state of Ohio, Northern Kentucky, and Indiana, the survivability, and that's Ohio Buckeye. And they explain it, there's definitions but yeah, Ohio Buckeye is one they think is going to be impacted by climate change. Yes, that's a great question. I didn't cover all those species. I can get that data to Chelsea.
Yeah, I always get people asking me questions if like right now, because a lot of the Buckeyes, people ask like if they're dead, but they're actually not. They go dormant early because
it's already
of
a
the
blight.
heat. Yeah, because of the blight and because of the heat, they can't stand the heat,
Right.
and so they just go dormant to just kind of surpass that time. Interested to hear a little more about partnership and research with MU Miami.
Yeah, so since I've been here, I've worked with Dr. Dan Gladish, Dr. Carolyn Kiefer, and pretty much I've had 10 interns and 8 have come from Miami University here. Chelsea was a former intern here when I started up, so that was great. But what we do is I usually reach out to Dr. Gladish or Dr. Kiefer, and they're in botany, and I say, hey, do you got any students that would be interested? And we've been trying to we have 2 internships in the summer, May through August, for about 12 to 16 weeks. Then we carry on some stuff in the fall and spring, but usually they give me recommendations. And this research project, I had actually reached out to Ohio State and a few others going, they weren't interested. So I reached out to Dr. Kiefer, and then we had to go, how are we going to do this research? And so she picked a couple of senior students to do their senior case study project. So that was like a 4-credit grade for them to do this research. And between myself and the current interns that are here in the office, we provided support to that student, and the student had to do the project from January and then do a formal presentation at the end. So we have the data. I can share that data, Chelsea, with you if they want to see that data and just what it means and what it expounds. So that's a great question, but we're going to continue that. I think Dr. Kiefer's retiring this fall in December, but Dr. Gladish is still here for another year, but then I'll probably reach out to whoever the replacement people.
Yeah. If you want to just compile an email with all the different resources, I can definitely post that. How about ancient trees like ginkgos?
Yeah, I think I have that over here as well. And I think the ginkgo are going to fare fine. They've been around since the days of the dinosaurs. So I'm pretty sure the ginkgo is going to outlive us. So I think they're good to go on that part. And again, they're from China, Asia over there. So they're non-native here, but they're going to do just fine.
Didn't in the past, didn't their range, wasn't it much more universal, but then something happened and they like all the population dropped except in those few areas where they're actually being cared for in those monasteries? Like what, did they ever figure out like why their population just dropped off the face of the earth?
I'm not sure, but I know over here in the United States, they do fine. They seem to
Oh
be
yeah, they like
all over.
thrive. Yeah.
Well, that's good questions.
Yeah, that's a good question. Anyone else? What efforts are there about better oversight of I think it's supposed to be, is it utilities and, what was it? Utilities?
I'm not sure. What's the question? I'm not sure I understand.
What
I think
efforts
they're
are,
asking about like when they over prune, when utilities companies come in and over prune.
do cities have any oversight on utility lines? Can
Yeah.
utilities be asked to fund new trees alongside trees with no poles?
Yeah, so to answer that question, just give you my background. I work for First Energy, which is like the 5th largest utility in the United States up in the Akron area. In Bowling Green, I did basically the same job. I was the utility forester, urban forester. Now down here, I'm the same thing. So to answer the question, when you're trimming for power lines, there's voltages. Obviously the transmission lines, which are high voltage. We're going to talk about those in the next talk in October, right, Chelsea? About monarch conservation edge habitat. So depending on the voltage line, it's the clearance the utilities have to take. It's a federal law, it's state law, it's what it is. And let's just talk about it. Obviously, the ideal tree to plant under a 45-foot pole line is one that's going to max out at 25 feet. Lilac, redbud, serviceberry, smaller maples. Anything that goes medium to tall, and I'm talking 35 and up to, you don't want oaks by wires or maples. So the utilities have to come in and prune a clearance, if you will, 10 foot of clearance, 15 feet, depending on the voltage, it goes up or clear around the pole. So, and that's a mandated federal, state public utilities commission. So that's not something the utility can not trim the tree or clear it or whatever. So the goal is we have the plant the right tree in the right place. So if it's gonna be a small tree, I'm just drawing this. There actually is a plant the right tree in the right place poster, and I'll send it to you, Chelsea. But it's trees that are max out at 20 feet go under a utility line. And then if you're 20 feet away, you can go with a 35-foot tree. And if you're 50 foot away, you can go with the big tree, because you always got to take the width into account. So, and what does right now in the city of Hamilton, all my budget to plant trees comes from the utility department. The 50 trees we give away is paid by the utility department. I know we do it. I can't speak for Duke, Dayton Power and Light, Butler Rural, or AEP, which is south of us here, but I can only speak for Hamilton. My entire budget comes out of utilities to pay to put trees back. So if we take out trees in the public right away. So let me preface that. Now the 50 we give away, those can be planted anywhere on private property, but I can only do 50 trees because that's all I'm allowed a budget for. And we never did it prior to last year. So that's kind of it. Now, if your electric's from Duke or Butler Rural, you would have to call them specific. But I know most utilities typically give money to an Arbor Day program in a city, or like, I'll give you an example. The 50 trees last year, Duke Energy gave it to the Arbor Day Foundation, who turned around and went to Taking Root, which is in Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky, and Indiana. Taking Root picked Fairfield, Hamilton, and Norwood, Ohio, get the 50 trees to give to the public. And that came from the Duke Energy Foundation, just for example. But now this year, Hamilton Utilities is paying for the 50 trees, and we're going to continue to do so in the future. So that was a good question.
Yeah, because essentially the whole reason why they go and trim the trees is to keep them out of those high voltage wires, so that in case of a storm or sometime, you don't lose power. That power lines will actually catch on fire if they get contact with it. Isn't that right, Dave?
Yeah, and they have lots of trouble with that, like out west. They have to actually fireproof the lines in California, because you remember all those fires they have, and a lot of people got killed and hurt, and they continue to have fires. So they have to go out and like fireproof their lines every year. And I think here in Ohio, it's every 4 or 5 years to kind of trim.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Yeah. Anything else?
Any more? I can't see any on my end.
So Dave, do you have like a kind of like a year, like a long-term Trek 2030 plan, like on how you will modify your planting list? Because I know you have a planting list, but do you have it?
Yeah,
with
we actually just did it up in Twin Run Homeowners Association. They were planted all in the pear, which they know are bad and can't be planted. At least most cities, it's prohibited planting, because they're going to be on the invasive plant list starting January 1st of 2023 by the Ohio Department of Ag. So you can't buy or sell a calorie pear subspecies. Now, fruiting pears that are bred just for fruit production will still be for sale in Ohio, but a flowering pear will be outlawed. So they've asked us for a plan. So between the two interns I have, we put together a plan using the Urban Site Index, using, the 5% genus and the transplant shock growth recovery study. We have put together a plan, and we actually did the presentation on Zoom, and we're going to start planting 20 trees a year for 5 years, specifically up there. We're doing another one in Arbor Springs subdivision. So now we're doing it by subdivision as they reach out to us through their HOA and their group. So the plantings, we're going to try and go with that 5% genus, and that's going to be the plan. I'll be here about another 10 years, and then the next person, Chelsea, whoever, you can take over for me and continue doing the good things. That was a good question.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Oh, Chelsea, one thing I was going to see if I could bring it up real quick. Do you want me to share the plant selector app real quick to everybody?
Yeah, that's always a good resource. Yeah.
Let me do this. And this is just for our folks here. See if I can bring it up. Oh, did I? Okay, share. All right. Tell me if it, let me get down.
There you
Did
go.
it pop up?
Yep.
Okay. So the point is, the team here and the interns we have, it's over on this screen. Sorry, I got 4 screens going, so I can't remember which one I'm on. But the point of this is it's a web app, which means it's a link. And if you go on the City Hamilton Urban Forestry, it'll be on that first page, and it'll say Hamilton Plant Selector app. So you can go up here, and when you click on this, choose site conditions, you say, I want a tree. A new build is under 20 years old. Wooded site would be what it means. You've got a wooded lot. And then urban just means it's older than 20. You can say, I've got full sun, clay soil, and wet dry. And then what it'll do below here is give you different trees. We'll just click on American basswood. You can click on the pictures or click learn more, and it'll go out and tell you about that tree. But the whole point of creating this was just the fact of I'm going to stop sharing and come back. The whole point of that was a lot of people, we started out with handing out pictures of trees. Then we created the posters with the QR codes. Now we got it down to an app where the app will bring up everything on our posters that you can see. Now, right now, it just does trees, shrubs, perennials, and annuals. The next thing we're gonna do is add in the butterflies, birds, insect pests, diseases, fungi. Everything you see that we have on the web, pretty soon that app will tell you. Now, of course, to build a web app, it costs about $5,000. To build an app for your phone, everybody goes, why, Dave, why didn't you just build an app for your phone like on here? Well, those cost $25,000 and I just don't have that kind of money. So the point is, we're going to expand it to add other information on there, but right now it'll get you. And what's cool about that is if you have a yard and you say a sunny spot and it explains more than 6 hours, 4 to 6 is intermittent, and then under 4 hours is shady site. It'll tell you what you can plant. And we tried to pick the plants that were in zones 5, 6, and 7, but specifically for Butler, this part of the state. So when you look at it, it's not everything. It's going to say coneflower, but I'm not getting it down to the cayenne pepper or the yellow one, right? You have to go to the nursery, but it'll at least get you where you need to be. And then you can go to a nursery or a business and ask them. It's cool.
Nice.
Okay. Uh-oh, more stuff's popping up. I see lights lighting up. Might be another question. No, maybe not. I can't see. Okay. I don't see any more, Chelsea. Unless you can. This has been a good group today.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see that app will make me very unproductive at my, that's going to be something to really play with.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's good to be able to see like which ones, are more, able to handle your area better than others.
Yeah, and there's, if you go on the urban forestry website for Hamilton, there's a ton of stuff on there, tree planting, selection. There's more knowledge. I know Chelsea had part of, I think you worked on the developers, businesses, and homeowners landscape guide for people, which is good for anywhere. And that's a resource that we've updated a couple times. So there's plenty of things there if you want to know about trees or rain gardens or all the good stuff.
Well, and I know it can be very tempting. Like when we built our house, everybody was putting those beautiful river birches up next to their house. And they look beautiful. I mean, that's like the style. But when we went to an actual nursery who actually knew what they were talking about, they're like, no, you don't want to do that. And in the long run, they were absolutely right. So it's always good to be able to consult professionals and people who actually know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get that one with the GIS for the city all set up where you can go in and find all the different trees around the city? That one's a really cool one because you can see,
Let's see if I
like
can do
all
this
the
just real
trees.
quick. I'll see if I can get it to go here. Okay. Let me pull that down. We're gonna get it to pull up. We'll see if I can get it real quick again here. Oh, when you got 4 screens, I got to get my mouse over here. So hold on. It's wild over here. Share. All right, here we go. All right, there we go. Okay. Just let me know if everybody can see it now. Can you see this screen that looks pretty busy?
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do is just turn something off. All right, so let's do this. We'll just turn off this so this looks a little better. So so what it is, all this screen, I'll just zoom out a little bit. That's every single tree that's on public property, a park, a golf course in the city of Hamilton. So you can see where all those dots represent a site. And I'm just going to go ahead and punch in 870. Let's see if I can punch in 870 Hanover. And then you can go in and then that'll zoom in and that'll bring you into where I'm at. And then you can just go over here and we'll just click on this. And then it'll go in, it'll tell you it's the Appalachian Redbud. And now, of course, it's right out here outside. You can't see the tree because it's old data, but there actually is a row of trees down there. And this is just information about the tree. You can click here, click on the tree and go back up and it'll say, okay, it's an Appalachian red bud, 2-inch diameter. We just planted it last fall. And then you can actually punch on the button and it'll go out and hopefully it'll pop up here. And I'm hoping. Oh, what happened? Did it not go?
It's
Hold on.
loading.
Oh, I didn't want to load that site for me. That's sorry about that. But the point being is I might have to load up that link when I add in a new tree if I don't load up the link. But the point is, now if we want to go out in the city and go, hey, where can we plant all the large trees? We can click on a button like so. And where you see that blowing up, all those orange dots, that's where we can plant the large tree. And that would be over 40 feet tall. Now, if we want a medium tree, it's yellow. Small tree, this would be where the right of way is 4 foot wide between the curb and the sidewalk, and medium 6 feet. And then again, now, here's the button. Where can't we plant a tree? Now you see all that red pop up on there. Those are sites where there's issues. Now you say, well, why is there so much red? It could be concrete. There's no green space. Or it could be a sewer line. It could be a water line. There's reasons we can't plant trees. Where are all the stumps in town? Well, we can pull up all the stumps and we're slowly picking away at those. But the point is, where are the tree, we've got city parks. Where are the gold medal trees? These would be trees that are large for that species that are very nice. So everything's in there. It's all electronic. And now here's the magic we can do. We can jump over here. Remember I talked about the equity, the tree equity, where do we prioritize where we plant trees? Well, we can go in and we can do it by strong neighborhoods. And by the way, the city of Hamilton is 41% canopied. To compare, Cleveland's only 15%, just to give you a comparison. So we're pretty treed, but we can go in here and go, what's my priority? Air quality, income, low income, minority areas, and then it'll pull up the map and the color will pop up on the map and I can get it down to the parcel. And this is where we would plant the trees. And if you look where the areas are dark red or purple, it says where we should focus planting our trees, for example. Then you can go into plant. We can plug in our planning costs. We can plug in our maintenance costs. And then we can go down here, 10, 20, 30. That's right, 3% mortality. What's our 30-year plan? And then we can go do nothing, don't plant any trees, no let loss, plant trees to match what we have and then extend, run the report. And then what we can do is you hit some maps there and that gives us data of where we can plant our trees, the projections, and then I can go in and punch in the vacant sites. And then from the vacant sites, I can create our tree planting list. So we're all technology. I can print out a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan based on all this data. I'll stop sharing the screen, but at the end of the day, we are probably, other than probably Columbus and Cincinnati, we're probably the only other city that is this far in technological advanced urban forestry in the state. So it's beautiful to have it. It makes my job a lot easier, makes it easier to bid contracts from our vendors. And like I said, I get 2 interns usually a year and most come from Miami. So that helps me out tremendously. But yeah, good question.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting to see all the different resources and how that data coagulates together using the GIS system, which a lot of people are pushing nowadays in these universities. It's GIS programming. So right there is a perfect example of how you can apply this for a city-based process and environmental impact and all that different planning. So I think it's interesting, and that's available for people to view at, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah. So if people want to be able to go in, I can provide a link and they can go in and look at it. And again, if I just pull up City of Hamilton real quick, I know people are probably wanting to go, hey, we got to get the heck out of here. You can go in. I'm just going to click on I'll do a quick share. This is the Hamilton tree planting app. And pretty much what this is it shows where we've planted trees. So you can say 2020, where did we plant the trees? And you can see it light up. Or you can say in 2009, where did the tree board plant the trees? And it'll just show where the tree board did. So you can do it by year. Again, there's 2012. I'll just go to 2016 when I got here. Again, you can see where we planted trees in the city. And then here's the cool part. You can actually drill down and click on the dot. And if you click on the dot, it'll actually tell you Tartanian maple. Then you click on the dot and it'll go out and tell you about the tree. So this is all computerized. It's right there. Everybody can see it at their fingertips, and it's pretty dang cool.
Yeah, and if you're like curious, oh, what is that tree? Then you go on there, it's like, oh, that's what it is. Yeah.
And on that tree planting app, you can actually be out with your phone and go, where am I? And it'll pick you up within 100 feet. And if the tree's in front of you, you can click on the tree and it'll tell you what it is.
Fantastic. All right, Dave, it looks like we're at the 1 minute mark.
Yeah.
We want to respect everyone's lunchtime era. So I want to thank you again for presenting and showing us all those wonderful resources. It was very fantastic. A lot of people are very happy with the presentation, all that. So thank you again. Thank you, Kelly, for helping and assisting us. So I'll close out this webinar, and I invite you all to come to our third one. Will be next month, and it'll be back with you, Dave. I think it's on the 13th. I think I said it was. So it'll be on the 13th. So if everyone wants to, you can register for that and come meet us again for a lunchtime event. All right. All right. Have a good rest of your days, you guys. I'll see you next time. Okay. All right. Bye.